everyone. Welcome back to another Tucker Tuesday. How's everyone doing out there tonight? What's going on, people? How are we doing? What's happening? What's happening? We have an interesting Tucker Tuesday for today. We have Tucker's first full-length interview with Russell Brand, and I have done my best to avoid anything about this interview. I have done my best to avoid anything remotely related to this, so I am going in as unknowing as a person can. Oh my gosh, I wasn't sure if you talk about it. Oh, we talking about it. This is going to be so good. You guys are getting me fucking hyped. M4 Sherman a couple hours ago, way before the stream even started. Hey Sin, I know this is early for the stream, but I'm going to my birthday dinner, so I'll watch a stream later tonight. Anyways, hope Tucker's stream goes well. Thank you, M4 Sherman, and happy birthday. Sir, I know he's not here, but can we get a big happy birthday to M4 Sherman in the chat from generous donation on his birthday? Much appreciated, sir. He just posted a 2-hour-long interview with Andrew Tate. I'll wait to see if it's good or not. I'm a little iffy on Andrew Tate, honestly, but maybe I'll give it a go. But that'll be next week because we have this one to look at this week. It's my kid's birthday today too. Nice, Sparks Heart. Studying constitutional law for a bar exam. Ready to hear about politics. I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more, probably a lot more social stuff than politics, but I guarantee you there's probably going to be some foreign policy stuff snuck in here somewhere. I see TC and JK have also shared the stream out. Much obliged to you both. Thank you very much. I want to just draw everyone's attention to the stream goal up above. We need to yeet PDF file Pete, because just the picture, the video of him with that girl he just met bothers me so much. I saved it, but honestly, it's probably getting purged from the twits. Let me see if I can pull it up again. A very weird video. Like, he meets this little girl. She's maybe 10, and he's like right up on her, hugging her, going, "Hi, yeah, that's nice." Whew. I'm sure you guys have seen it.
Look what I got here. Hey, where the white women at?
I love that one. Yo, haven't hit this one in a while. I mean, this is a good one. That is a fantastic one. Thank you, Fostonia. That is one of my favorites. It's a solid one. Fuck, where's the video? Was it not last? Was it the week before last? I had it slated for one of the AAAs, but I had to cut it. It's completely possible that it's been purged from YouTube. Or from Twitter. Doesn't seem I can find it, but it bugged me really bad. So yeeting PDF file Pete. That's the whole thing. I sent it to you on Twitter. Oh, JK, you're a fucking legend. Holy shit, it's a 2.5-hour interview? Oh yeah, here it is. You're right. It was in our Twitter DMs, JK. Look at this. Oh fuck. Look at this weirdo.
Yeah. You're good. Let me whisper a secret. Don't tell mommy what I told you.
Fucking weirdo. Fucking weirdo. Yeah, that's the goal tonight, to yeet PDF file Pete, because fucking weirdo. They try to say the sniffing was added later, but I tend to agree. Okay, but still, he's telling secrets that they're not supposed to tell her mom? Okay, the sniffing was added post. What the fuck, man? That's weird. I'm really starting to think Corn Pop wasn't the bad guy. I think you might be right on that account, honestly. Yeah, I think you might be right. But anyway, guys, smash the like button, share it out on your social media. Should you feel so inclined, please consider hitting up the Streamlabs We have, I do believe, 1, 2, 3 new donations. We have 3 new donations, and you guys know we got the 5, the 501, the 1,000, and the 1,001 to get you into the McKinley and or the Comma Club, which will get you a new Pinky Salmon song. All right, let's get the thing. Let's get going.
Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me on Stay Free with Russell Brand. At the moment, we're on YouTube, but that will only be for the first 15 minutes before we are exclusively on the home of free speech, Rumble, and of course, our free speech.
How's the audio out there for you guys? Is that okay?
Speech is the free speech to unify in the spirit of love, not free speech to speak hatefully of one another. Of course, the reason we're so excited today is because we are being joined for a world exclusive. We have Tucker Carlson with us in studio, his first interview since leaving Fox News. Thanks for joining us, Tucker Carlson.
Russell Brand. As your friend and as someone who watches a lot of your videos, I'm amazed that I'm here. This is prettier even. I'm not going to give away critical details and jeopardize your safety, but this is, if people could see where you're broadcasting from.
Do you think it's a beautiful?
I think it's beautiful. And that's not an overstatement. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you so
Implying that background's real, it does look pretty gorgeous.
much, because I think we have a beautiful intention here. We're recognizing that independent media and independent politics are beginning to coalesce. It's becoming increasingly unlikely that you can report truthfully, honestly, and in good faith, putting forward anti-establishment narratives without being...
No, you can't. You can't do any of this. You can't put forward anything anti-establishment and expect to be held up by any sort of legacy media, even social media. You know, honestly, Elon bought Twitter, but it's still fucking Twitter. They're still doing the same shit they used to do, just with Elon Musk at the helm.
Being attacked. Of course, we're going to talk about a lot of subjects here, but primarily we're going to want to talk about the reasons for you leaving Fox. We're going to want to talk about some of the reporting around Jan 6. We're going to want to talk about the attacks that you endured in your defense of the text messages around Trump. First of all, I want to start off by asking you, Tucker, how has it been in the 6 months or so since you left Fox? How have you been personally, and how does it compare to the...
Russell Brand used to be quite a big lefty. He's still a lefty. Like, he's still a super lefty, but he's just not an establishment lefty, so they don't consider him left-wing anymore.
The time when you left MSNBC.
Like Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore's not an establishment lefty, so they all hate him.
In terms of its emotional impact on you.
Well, I've been fired. You know, it's not the first time I've been fired. And I think in our business, when you work for a big company in...
So is he tacitly admitting that he's been fired? Let me hear that again.
Compared to the time when you left MSNBC in terms of its emotional impact on you.
Well, I've been fired. You know, it's not the first time I've been fired. And I think in...
I think he's saying he was fired. I mean, we all knew he was fired, but it's still interesting to hear him say it.
Our business, when you work for a big company in media and, you know, you say what you think, there's an expectation that you could get fired. So I've always had that, and I've always tried to take the long view, not just on media, but on life.
Technically, I think he considers it a firing. They canceled the show. That's a firing.
All graves go unvisited in the end. I always think that. And so I was surprised. I didn't, you know, expect to get fired that morning at all in April. So I was shocked, but I wasn't really shocked. And I wasn't mad. It's not my company.
There you go. He was fired. Kira Soldier calling for a train. What's your opinion on Russell Brand? He's always been a flake, but now he's seemingly been red-pilled. Oh, I had someone say I look like Pete Davis. Not sure who that is, and if I should take it as a compliment. I don't know who Pete Davis is either, so I can't say here nor there. Thank you for the happy birthdays. I think I may make everyone feel old by accident, but I'm finally 21, so that means I could buy my own alcohol instead of asking friends and roommates for cooking and cooking reasons. You know, that you're right. That counts, and that is to Awoo. You guys, you know the ways to do the Awoo. 777-778. Any of the John Wicks. I'm going to kind of executive decision any of the nobodies. The 7777, 7777. And any of the club joiners.
And when you work for someone else, that person reserves the right, and in fact has inherently the right to decide whether you work there or not. And I don't know why I was fired. I really don't. I'm not angry about it. You can believe me or not, but I think you can feel that I'm not. And, you know, I wish Fox well. There was, you know, ugly leaking, you know, I'm a racist or whatever they leaked, or someone there leaked to the New York Times, but I
don't believe any of the leaks, by the way. That's just my personal opinion.
That's not true. And I think the people who run the company know that's not true. I actually don't think they did it. And I'm not mad about it. And
oh, Pete Davidson. That makes more sense, Kira Soldier.
I've been
hey, Poltergeisha.
I guess
check your Twitter DMs, Poltergeisha.
The only thing that bothers me is I'm 54, and when you get a little bit older.
50? I thought he was 51. He's 54? Holy shit.
And my wife and I, you know, our children are grown and we live in rural settings, as you do, because we believe in nature and God and dogs. You know, you can lose your drive. I mean, it's just a little bit too nice, kind of. And I do feel like we, you know.
I appreciate this, but I'm going to put it up to 1.25.
People who are healthy and aware and who can read, like, have an obligation to be engaged in the life of the community they live in, and the life of the country they live in, and the life of the world, to the extent that they.
As far as you can, I think it is probably good if you live in a decent community to try to be involved with it as much as you can, even if it's something as minuscule as just like making sure your yard looks nice. You want your area to look good.
They can. And so my only fear has been maybe being a little bit too happy. You know, I've spent a lot of time trout fishing, a lot of time, we have 4 dogs, a lot of time with my dogs and my wife, and a lot of kind of like late breakfast outside and stuff. And, you know, like, you don't, that's not, I mean, that's great, but life has got to be more than that. So now I'm back to work, and I'm grateful to be doing that.
The fact that you're broadcasting now on Twitter suggests that you still want
Twitter
to remain engaged in the international conversation, which is a conversation about ethics. It's a conversation about power. If you're watching us on Rumble right now, remember to press the red button if you want to join us on Locals. That's where I watch the conversation. I can see Sensitive Hearts, Ash Ella, all of our beautiful, unified, diverse community that speak openly and freely there. Please do join us, because at the end of this conversation, Tucker's going to join us for an additional chat. True or false with Tucker? In a sense, the whole conversation is true or false. I mean, what's the point in having a conversation if there isn't some line between authenticity and falsehood? You touched briefly for a moment on the idea of racism. And of course, this is an idea that's talked about a lot, or an accusation really that's been offered. When I went on your show in America, mate, which I enormously enjoyed, and the personal connection with you that we have since cultivated is the thing that I perhaps most enjoyed. I spoke to some of my friends that are overtly liberal, even though many of them are beginning to recognize that the categories of left and right.
Don't say what it is yet, Poltergeisha, but it looks all right, doesn't it?
Shifting. What they said is that Tucker Carlson, when he talks about demographic shifts in the United States of America, how the balance between different ethnicities is shifting over time.
Honestly, Rumble paid him, yeah, but Rumble kind of sucks asshole. As a platform, it is confusing. It is not user-friendly for creators. Honestly, I don't know how it is. You did a fantastic job with your part of it, that's for sure. It's really difficult to use as a creator. I don't really know how it is as a watcher, because I don't watch anything on Rumble, if I'm just being honest about it. I know there are a few people there have found really good success, but man, I can't do it. I just can't do it. Number 3, I swear it sounds almost like Tucker is talking with Drunkle. It does.
That is codified racism. And some of them, like some of my mates that are LA Democrats, like, you know, me, I don't believe in any political party anymore in this country.
Tell me about it. Yeah, no, I agree.
But I do still feel that some of the principles that are more typically associated with the left, like recognizing.
Rumble does updates all the time. Maybe I'll wait a little bit, because I had Rumble synced up to where it would just upload everything from my YouTube, because I was one of the first people on Rumble. At least they like personally invited me on when it was still a beta. But now that that's gone, I don't put anything up there.
that all voices have a value in the conversation, and that essentially that racism is bad. So how do you feel about that, and what are you talking about when you say there's a demographic shift? You know, what do you mean?
Say a couple things. First, I always try. I'm over 50, so like, why wouldn't I just say exactly what I think at all times? And I do. And so if I
think that is a way of thinking that everyone should adapt to. Just say what you're thinking. Don't scoot around it. Don't tiptoe. Just say what's on your mind. Literally everybody will be better off if you do that.
I had, well, whatever my racial views are, I would just say them. And I'm just saying them now. So,
and by the way, yes, Fustonia is number 3 on the Awoo train. Nicely done.
My views about race begin with my religious faith, which is not very sophisticated, but is sincere.
Yeah.
And that begins with the belief, the knowledge, the certainty that God created people, that they're not objects, they're not machines, they're not widgets in a bin waiting to be assembled by some company. They are distinct individuals with distinct souls, and they have equal value in the eyes of God. Doesn't mean they have equal ability. Doesn't mean they all look the same, but it means they have equal inherent value. And my politics flow from that belief.
Yes.
And so the idea that you would reduce people to their race and say, you know, we're going to treat this person better or worse because of his skin color is repugnant to me. And it's something that I've argued against every day that I was at Fox News, I think all of my life. You can't punish or reward people based on their immutable characteristics.
Yes.
And I have been saying pretty much the same thing for years now. Since the start of this channel. You cannot judge, uphold, or deride anybody based on how they're born, what they're into, who they choose to have sex with. 2 rules: no animals, no children. Outside of that, genuinely, nobody really gives a shit what you do. Besides some fucking old man in the woods somewhere going, man, black people in the big cities do be doing the crimes. Come on, man. Let's be real.
Because they didn't choose those characteristics. So it's inherently unfair. It's inherently immoral. I'm totally opposed to it. And so if that's a racist position, I guess, you know, I'll just stand and take the punishment. I don't think that is. I think that's an argument against racism. I think it's wrong to reduce people to qualities they were born with and they can't control. Period.
Yes.
Full stop. Literally always that. If the status of how you were born, whether it's skin color, orientation, what have you, is outside of your control, then you have no right to be judged on it. And anybody who does judge you on it is an asshole.
My views on immigration are super simple and I think mainstream and sensible. The fact of who lives in a country more than any other fact determines what the country is like. And so if you change it radically over a very short period of time, you're going to have a lot of social upheaval, a lot of churn. It's going to...
You cannot bring sand to the beach and expect it to mean anything. We already have a bogged down labor market, and we are importing by the millions people who are taking low skill, low wage jobs away from people trying to grow up.
Rattle people. People who can't metabolize change very well at all. The Industrial Revolution led to Stalinism and then the Third Reich. Like... These are basic facts. It's not an attack on anyone's color at all. And I'm, you know, whatever. So those are my views. I support.
No animals, no kids. That sounds like right-wing extremism right there. You know what? If that's the new thing where they're like, hey, somebody sensible, most people sensible go, you know what? You shouldn't be giving kids books on how to give old men blowjobs, and you shouldn't be taking your kids to parades with people walking around naked and peeing on each other. If that's a right-wing extremist, so be it.
A lot of, well, I don't know how I feel about immigration as a topic. There are a lot of immigrants I love, including my best friend, for whatever it's worth. So of course I'm not against immigrants. Like, that's insane. But the way that the United States is doing immigration is designed to wreck the country and to make it unstable and to destroy any social...
You know what? I think Tucker's way overthinking this. I think the way they're doing immigration right now is literally just to get as many blue voters packed into red areas as humanly possible. That's all I think it is.
Cohesion whatsoever, or social trust, to make people hate each other and add to racial division, which I hate.
I mean, that is a lot of what it is. Dashboard. M4 Sherman. All right, gotta go. Gonna go have some Olive Garden with the family, so I'll catch the VOD for the rest of the stream later. See you guys later. M4, have a happy birthday, man. Good dinner.
Because it's not
have a
solvable.
good dinner. Have a happy birthday and good dinner. Jesus. English hard.
In contrast to, say, class division. If we're arguing about class, well, at least class theoretically can change. I can ascend or descend classes, but race doesn't change because we're not responsible for it. We're created that way. So you don't want racial conflict. That's the one thing you don't want. And I feel that in the United States, our leaders not only want racial conflict, but are stoking it.
Ooh, we are 10% to goal, guys. Nicely done. If you're just coming in, smash that like button, share it out. So far, this is shaping up to be a really damn good stream. So smash that like button, share it out. If you want to support, you know how. You know exactly how. Let's keep this train a-rolling. Oh, and by the way, the 7777 gets you 10 on the Awoo train. So if you feel like going big, it gets you 10 cars on the train.
But as a practical matter, just in the context of U.S. politics, and perhaps it's similar in the U.K., the term racist or white supremacist or white nationalist, these are terms designed to stop people from talking. I remember the first time I was called a white supremacist. And for whatever it's worth, I don't want to sound offensive, but I grew up in Southern California in the 70s, living with a father who was, in modern terms, very racially progressive or something. And he was always saying, God created people. Like, racism didn't even make sense to me. That was not a factor in my life at all. And we lived right next to Mexico, whatever. So, but the first time I was called a white supremacist, I was like, geez, it hurt. It stung. And I thought, I'm not exactly.
And that has lost all of its being called a white supremacist, a Nazi, all that shit has lost literally all of its sting. It means nothing anymore. It means literally nothing. Because everybody is one. I got called a Nazi for not agreeing with Hassan Piker on something. You know, everyone is a Nazi now. It means literally nothing. Tucker is on point as always. I think the root of a lot of this complaining about non-existent racism, etc., comes from people being told they were specialist kids. Now they're searching for anything to make them feel special. That's a really good point. People, they want something to make them feel unique. You know, one of the things my aunt always told me, she's like, you deserve no better than anybody else. So if you want something, you better damn well work for it. Because the world will always need ditch diggers, but if you want to be better, you have to earn it.
I'm not sure what that is, but I know that I'm not one. But
you know what? I made a face there like anybody could see it, like did that little smile and cocked my eyes. She's right.
But I know that that's like the worst thing you can be. That's like calling someone a Nazi. Like, or a monster.
Which also
Satan,
means
what is
fucking
that?
Nothing.
And I was bothered by it. It was right when I started my last Fox show. So it was in the fall of 2016. And I did a kind of long, very sincere, I mean it too, sincere script about how, you know, this is what I believe, and we're all created by God, and you should never punish or reward people based on their skin color. And it had no effect at all. And then I realized the people using those terms are not sincere at all. There's no sincerity. The words have no meaning to them, except as they're useful as tools to acquire political power and to make anyone who stands in the way of that shut up or go away or go to prison. And so once I realized they weren't sincere, then it's like, that's between me and God. And not only am I not a racist, I'm not much of a hater. Yeah. I really try not to be. And there are things that I hate, and there are people I feel like I'm on the verge of hating sometimes, or I feel myself obsessing. You know, you're like in the truck, or you're, you know, walking the dogs and you're pissed about something, and I can't believe that fucking person, you know, whatever. And I really try and catch myself.
Hey, Tucker did a swear. Tucker did a swear.
And say to myself, that will eat you if you let it fester like that. Don't be that way. And
it's exactly how I drive around. This motherfucker. What's wrong with them? They're going, this is the fast lane. They're going 55.
Very flawed person, but I really try not to be a hater because I think that's death. I mean it too.
One of the areas of your answer there that
the thing that pisses me off more than fucking anything when I'm driving is if I'm going through an intersection and somebody tried to like go through the intersection the other way, but they got caught in the line of cars that's backed up. So now they're in the intersection while I got the green light. Ooh, dog, man, that, God bless, that is a quick way for me to go. I'll lay on the horn. I'll get right up on them. Fuck those people.
I imagine we could talk about further the distinctions between having a position on immigration and its potential ability to destabilize an indigenous population, how you, again, cross-reference that with colonial and imperial history, how you cross-reference that with globalism and an attempt to create sort of like a centralist authoritarian model. That's something we could talk about a lot longer, I'm sure, the distinction between racism and having a position on immigration.
I feel like such an ass when I do that accidentally. Look, man, it aggravates me so goddamn bad. Cyclists piss me off more than anything. They're cyclists. You're supposed to ride single file on a street, and they ride 2, 3 stacked out. Fostonia giving a 6 on the Awoo train. Sin driving, get off my road. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Don't be in front of me.
Also,
and don't tailgate me.
You get in the way of their business plan and they call you a racist. That's what's actually happening here.
And perhaps I wonder too, Tucker, indeed, about these new categories of misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation, how new ways of censoring and shutting down conversation are beginning to appear. I reckon we should come off YouTube now. If you're watching us on YouTube, the next question...
And we are, somebody re-uploaded it to YouTube. Thank you. Abshek.
I'm going to ask you, Tucker. There's a viewer question. This is from @TheBoss. This is on Locals. If you want to watch this on Locals, press the red button and join our Locals community. This is how we aim to have conversations like this all the time, because my belief is actually an optimistic and hopeful one of humanity, that we share more with one another than divides us, and that there are ways of reorganizing society radically, and that our categories...
And you know what? That's a sad truth right there, is if we want people to come together a little bit more, if we want people to not be as divided as they are now, it would have to be some radical reorganization. It's ridiculous.
And our lexicon has to alter significantly, because...
Same poltergeist, it's usually just crackheads around here.
Left and right are starting to become redundant when there are so many similarities between the left and right, when both...
You can always tell a cyclist from somebody who's just had too many DUIs, though, because a cyclist usually has a helmet and those spandex shorts. The guy with too many DUIs has a backpack and jeans on. Like, you can tell the difference.
Appear to be driving towards centralist authoritarian models where you are surveilled and censored at will, where free conversation is closed down on the basis that there is some other authority that knows better than you what you mean when you're speaking, and that they have the right to shut you down. Press that red button and join us over on Local so you can ask questions to Tucker.
Hey Luna, what's going on, buddy?
Assuming that your question's for Tucker, although I'll answer any question that you throw my way, let me tell you. The boss says, what is your relationship with Trump like now? But before Tucker tells us what...
Completely turned off. I am one. That's the other thing. People say he's an evil Trump supporter. No, I am completely turned off from the idea of Donald Trump right now. And for better or for worse, I just, the last year of his presidency really,
his relationship with Donald Trump is like right now, having said once, like, you know, those text messages, remember that stuff? Yeah. And then publicly saying that Donald Trump is significant. Plus, we've got to talk about RFK. Plus, we've got to talk about censorship. Plus, we've got to talk about the military-industrial complex. Plus, we've got to talk about the Hunter Biden laptop. And plus, we've got to talk about Big Pharma. And in order to do that, we have to have free speech. That's why...
I've never had a DUI, but a backpack and my cargo pants are my go-to cycling outfit. Well, you're from Ireland, aren't you? So, yeah, it's probably normal there. But here... You go, that's a crackhead. That's somebody who's had 57 DUIs. Like, you can tell.
You've got to click on the link in the description. Join us over on Rumble right now. And if you're with us on Rumble, bye-bye, YouTube. We love you, you 6.4 million Awakening Wonders. If you're watching us on Rumble, press the red button and join us on Locals and post your questions there. There's so much to ask you. I'm so grateful to you for coming here. Do you like it? You happy?
I love it.
Have you got everything you need? Can I offer you any more snacks, nicotine, gum?
I've got my nicotine. I've got my Pellegrino. I had my coffee. I'm in my happy place.
I'm so glad that you're comfortable here. Thank you so much. It means a lot that you've given us this interview. Thank you very much, Tucker. Mate.
Just give me an ashtray and a bucket to piss in. I'll sit here all fucking day.
So, I suppose what we're asking there is that it seems that you said that Trump was no longer relevant in the political conversation. He was no longer the lightning rod. He was no longer the berserker of American politics. Loads of people on our platform absolutely love Donald Trump.
I don't know if he is, man. I don't think he's that guy anymore. I don't think he is.
Trump, they see him as the solution to...
Akira, number 7. Building up a nice little train here, guys. Fuck cyclists. I hate them. There are tracks and trails and shit everywhere that we spend tax money on. Go use that shit. Why the fuck cycle around the road at 7:45 a.m. on a fucking Monday? I have to go to work. Get off the fucking road. Dude, so Cleveland has this thing called the Metro Parks. And in the Metro Parks, it's a gorgeous like ride. You go in the fall, man, it's beautiful. But they have little walking and biking lanes, all like they go through the woods. They don't just go right on the road. They go through the woods. So you actually get to go in the woods. These fucking cyclists just insist on going on the fucking road like 2 feet off this 2 feet, fucking like 4 feet off the side. And it's a lot of winding shit. So you can't go around them safely until like you get a little bit of a straightaway, and the straightaways are just a couple of 100 fucking meters. So you have to really like just sit behind these motherfuckers, because they go in the middle of the road. They just sit there. They don't move over. They don't ride in the designated little area by the side. And then they ride 2-3 deep. So you have to go into oncoming traffic to get around. It's ridiculous.
America's problems. They see him as the great swamp drainer. It seems you have occupied varying positions on Trump at various times. Where are you?
He didn't drain the swamp. He let the swamp fester, then got mad when the swamp swamped.
On Donald Trump now, and particularly perhaps how that relates to the emergence of radical anti-establishment figures within the Democrat Party, notably RFK.
Where am I on Trump now? Well, I love Trump. Personally. I mean, I made a huge mistake last November in getting involved in American politics, something I've never done before, and making calls, you know, this guy's going to win. I think this is going to happen in this state. Meet your new governor in New York, stuff like that. And I was wrong on almost every call. I'm not a very astute political analyst. I'm not interested in politics. I never have been interested in politics. I'm interested in ideas. I'm interested in people. And so there's a primary going on in the United States between Trump and a bunch of other people, primarily Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, but others, Vivek Ramaswamy, for example. And I haven't said
I like
word one about
Ramaswamy.
it. Don't plan to. I think looking back on this 10 years from now, assuming we're still around, I think we're going to see Trump's emergence as the most significant thing to happen in American politics in 100 years, because he reoriented the Republican Party against the wishes of Republican leaders. But when I think about Trump right now, so it's
Ramaswamy will most likely never become
Don't do that.
president, but he's a good egg. I like him. I like him a lot. He's sharp and he knows what he's talking about. Before I had my license, I would bike everywhere, but I did everything physically possible to stay the fuck out of traffic. And Fucklesnuck, you are a good person, and we all appreciate you trying.
July of 2023. You know, I'm struck by his foreign policy views. You know, Trump is the only person with stature in the Republican Party, really, who's saying, wait a second, you know, why are we supporting an endless war in Ukraine? And that, you know, leaving aside whether Trump's going to get the nomination or get elected president or would be a good president, you know, I can't even assess that. All I can say at this point is I'm so grateful that he has that position. He's right. And everyone in Washington's wrong. Everyone. And Trump is right on that question. And it's a big question. That war is reshaping the world. It's reshaping the economy of the world. It's reshaping populations. I mean, I was just in Romania last week, you know, which is, of course, shares a border with Ukraine. The refugees in that region, the number of people killed in that war. I mean, Europe will never be the same because of this war. And it really matters. And Trump alone among popular figures in both parties understands that. And I'm grateful for it. Whether he gets the nomination or gets elected, you know, words really matter. Saying something true.
I really don't think Trump could win again unless they put him up again. So the only person who can beat Trump, they are not going to put him up against. They're going to put him up against Biden, and literally nobody's happy with Biden. I think the last we covered on the AAA, his numbers were like, what, 35, 37 approval? That's a wrap on that. So I don't know what they're going to do.
Out loud matters. And he is saying true things about Ukraine, and God bless him. That's it.
But one thing I know for sure is that we're almost 20% to goal. So if everyone could smash the like button, share it out, and if you feel like hitting up the slabs, that'd be greatly appreciated.
How I feel.
So Trump generated, I suppose, a new type of populism. He rebooted politics. He reordered the Republican Party. And but perhaps is it fair to say that, other than the significant fact that he was less militaristic significantly than other comparable presidents,
That is true. That's a good Trump thing. He was much less militaristic that I'm aware of.
At least recent presidents, I mean by that. Do you think that he delivered in office? Why do you think he remained so fascinating? Do you think that the Americans, broadly speaking, that are attracted to Donald Trump are attracted by his foreign policy stance? Or do you think that there's something else? And do you not think that RFK, who is, my understanding, he's been on the show a couple of times, he's now on Rumble, and I find him to be a very admirable man. He similarly is vehemently anti-war, anti-this conflict, and seems to also have identified the unspoken intention to be the deracination and annihilation of Russia for globalist and economic reasons, rather than the rather naive assumption that it's in any way a humanitarian conflict.
It's for democracy. That's my favorite. It's for democracy. Okay. Say to people who hate me.
And there goes the Trump. Just watch Sound of Freedom. Movie was well done. It helps that it was technically a Christian movie. Faith wasn't at all the centerpiece. Blay barely held it together. I don't know what that movie is, honestly. I know a lot of people are really mad about it, though. So if anyone can give me the TLDR on it, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Donkey Punch, bringing us right almost to 10%. I was and kind of still am a decently big Trump, but his domestic and foreign policy sucked. He really had good economic policies. The economic policies weren't too bad, but the domestic policies, especially during COVID and the vaccine shit, were fucking... That was enough to sour it for me. The economic policy, economically great.
Democracy. Well, I love Bobby Kennedy, and I've had him on my show many times.
Oh, calling out human trafficking. Democrats hate it. Wow, really? Democrats hate a movie about human trafficking? What? No way. Fighting child traffickers, that's a TLDR based after a true story. Oh, no wonder. Human traffickers hate movie anti-human trafficking. I'm shocked.
He announced for president on my show, which took a lot of stones on his part, given how despised I am by a lot of Democratic primary voters. I think he's a wonderful person. I'll say that. Just as a man, I admire him. I admire. I mean, he said the greatest thing any politician or any public figures ever said to me at dinner a couple of years ago. You know, they've gone after his family. The pharma companies and their agents in the media have really gone after his family. His siblings. They convinced a bunch of his siblings to denounce his views. So painful, and I'm so close to my family, I can't even imagine that. And I said to him, what's that like? I thought I took a lot of shit. I can't even imagine what that would be like. If my brother denounced me, I'd probably shoot myself. I couldn't handle it.
Also, if it was
that'd be bad.
He would be able to provide the weapon.
That'd be really bad. Hey, Sinatra, you been enjoying summer? I was sick for a little bit, but yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. How are you, man?
Yeah, well, yeah. My brother's not going to denounce me. He's my best friend and wonderful man. But anyway, so I said to him, what's that like? And he said, and I'm quoting, probably shouldn't be quoting a private conversation, but he said this to me. He said, I've got 7 children and they all love me. I don't care.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, you want to distill my values into a sentence? That's the sentence. So I really admire him. I don't agree with him on everything. I do agree with him, I'll just be honest, on most things, on the big things.
Yeah.
And so, no, I love what he's doing. I love his bravery, which is just remarkable. The amount that man has suffered for what he thinks is true, the amount of money he's lost, the friends he's lost. He's been ostracized in a way most people can't even understand because he ticked off a drug company? Really? And he's
not a drug company, several drug companies.
Persevered, and I really admire him.
Hey, Pinky. I was just talking about how we got new songs.
If RFK and Trump have risen, as they plainly have, to capture the popular imagination, and
I would like to see an RFK Trump ticket. I think that would be a winning ticket, but I don't know if Trump would do it because RFK is very anti-vax and Trump is still pushing it. Bit of a loaded question. Is there any way you can realistically seeing our political situation reset and improve? It seems no matter who we elect, they will always be subverted by the establishment deep state. Yes and no. Yes, because somebody would need to completely clean house. Top down, clean house, no matter what. But they can't run on that because they'll get JFK'd. So, I mean, yes, I have hope, but is it realistic? I'm really torn on it. I don't want to be a black pillar. I don't want to be a doomer. But America is a great country, the greatest country, and I really want to have hope, but I don't know, man. I don't know. They would have to tear it down from the top down. They'd have to dismantle everything. They'd have to literally rip apart the people who... They would have to do what Trump promised to do.
Yet both, to a degree, are stymied, shackled, or reluctantly tolerated by their party. What does that tell us about the shifting sands of American political life? I think the area where you and I most plainly and overtly align, perhaps other than the belief in God, I suppose, is our deep understanding that the military-industrial complex and big pharma are able to exert significant power over the Democratic Party, democratic process that renders ordinary electoral politics basically meaningless.
Yes.
These two figures are like populist anti-establishment figures in a sense. What do you feel is the likelihood of either of them being able to pass through the internal mechanics of their parties, you know, in the case of RFK, through the legal hurdles that are being placed in front of Trump at the moment? And what is the role of independent media, in particular, say, a figure like Elon Musk, who seems, at the moment at least, to have the power to fight on that terrain? I know there's a lot in that question, Tucker, but you've got
I would say a couple things. One, the United States has had precisely in 250 years...
Oh, we're over 20%. Nicely done, guys. 20% to the way of yeeting pedo Pete. If you want to know, you want to help, you know what to do.
Almost one populist president, and that was Teddy Roosevelt, also the most popular president in American history, who was president from 1901. The president was, who he served as VP, was shot to death until 1908. Most popular president the United States ever had, and he was a populist. The two biggest populist figures in the moment are Trump and Bobby Jr., and then we had a guy called Ross Perot run about 30 years ago who roughly had the same politics. All four of those figures had one thing in common. They were all from the world they criticized. So you think of populist, you know, the English peasant revolt, which is one of the most interesting things ever to happen, where they stormed the Tower of London and killed, I think they killed the Archbishop.
I'm from there. That died in Essex.
Yes.
Wat Tyler.
Yeah, Wat Tyler, exactly. We're not even sure if that was his real name. And Wat Tyler. And, but he was a legit peasant. Like, we don't even know when he was born. And that was not an effective rebellion. Of course, they did not free the serfs after that, as I recall. But the effective populists are the ones who critique from the inside and say, I grew up in this world. Teddy Roosevelt grew up rich, of course, in New York. Trump, Perot, Bobby Kennedy's family is one of the most famous families in the world in modern history. The Kennedys, and certainly the most famous family in Democratic politics. So these are people who know how the system works because they've benefited from the system. And so their critique is much more meaningful and much more effective, I would say, because they can bear witness to what they have seen. I don't think Trump has changed politics in Washington. I think the parties both have been very resistant to any kind of reform. And that's very foolish. That's a Ceausescu move. You see things changing around you, and you can't metabolize it. You can't sort of change with the moment. And then you...
That's the other thing, is people get so locked in to their positions that others, and especially people who support them, if they change their mind, they go, well, you're just weak. You're weak. You're not you're not really believing this. Like, no, opinions change. That's just what they do. You get new evidence put in front of you, your opinion changes. But see, look, this entire stream we've had 115 dropped, and Doc got dropped by half health. So I don't know what the fuck is up with Streamlabs. But yeah, interesting. I think, and this is a big gamble, but I think $100 dono might be enough. 110? A Witcher would be enough to turn the tide. I also think here is also a problem with RFK. He's as far left as everyone else in his field, except for vaccines. He's environmentalist, anti-2A, and pro-globalism. I don't think you can be pro-globalism and anti-vaccine, because that is literally, maybe, I don't know. I'm not too hip to RFK's views, honestly, but he seems like he's causing some waves.
You meet a bad end when you become that rigid. I think that Bobby Kennedy and Trump will both have a very tough time getting the nomination. I'm hoping that both of them will, of course, I guess. I'm hoping that their message will be heard. I don't know. I don't even know what I hope for in the process itself, but I want them to be heard. And they can now be heard because there are channels of information that people can tune into and listen. I mean, I would amend one thing you said when you said that, these huge multinationals control our politics. Well, they also control our media.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, Pharma, as you well know and often say on your show, is the biggest advertiser on American television. Probably true in the UK as well. And so, there's no incentive whatsoever to question their product.
I think it's only in the USA that Big Pharma can advertise on TV. If I remember correctly.
And now we have, because of the social media companies, Twitter and Rumble, and probably others, we have less filtered sources of information with fewer gatekeepers and a higher probability you'll hear something true. I think that's a huge change. I mean, how can you, and this is like samizdat. This is like, you know, this is like information that the people in charge don't want you to see. And now you can see it. It really is the promise of the internet finally fulfilled. That's my hope anyway.
Figures like RFK and Trump already demonstrably, through his successful use of Twitter, are going to require new models of media in order to build an audience, whether or not you align with the views of those individuals. It's plain to see that the traditional media models curtail and censor their rhetoric. Why, when you left Fox News, I think, like, for those of us that work in independent media space, all thought, oh, like Tucker's leaving. Like, I even, if I may say, like when we met, I was like, oh, he's going to leave Fox. Like, I felt like just from the.
I mean, we were calling it. We just didn't expect it to happen so quickly.
Just because of your awareness and because of the stuff you were saying about the mainstream, the fact you're having Glenn Greenwald on there, and people
every week from his bunker in Rio. I love Glenn.
Yeah, he's
what
a beautiful
good
human being.
Yes,
he's no doubt a brilliant man. So we were all amongst us thinking, where will Tucker go? Is it going to be Tucker? Will he be joining us on Rumble? Will you set up your own thing? What was it about your conversations with Elon Musk that led you to work there on Twitter?
Well, I don't work for Elon. He's paid me zero money. I don't think I ever want to work for anyone again. I've done that. I'd like to make money. I mean, I think that's fair. I've made zero money since I left, and that's fine. But at some point I'd like to, but I'm not.
Tucker is unfathomably rich. Could you imagine being able to go, I haven't made money in 3 months. Who cares? Ugh, I'm over here going, man, I got to pay my tax. I had to pay my tax bill last night. Fuck me.
Working for Elon Musk, he hasn't offered to hire me, and if he did, I wouldn't accept. But what he's done is offered me what he's offered every other user of Twitter, which is a chance to broadcast your views without a gatekeeper there. But I do think, I think the technology at Twitter is, my expectation, is evolving, and I think the subscription model might work, or it might not. I don't know, but I think it might, and I plan to stay there. But what social media offer in the short term, at least for me, is an audience, but also a reason, this is personal, but a reason to write. I can't think clearly without writing. I started in this business as a magazine writer and a book writer, newspaper writer, and I need to write things out. I'm very dyslexic, and I can't, I have trouble processing information in certain ways. And unless I'm forced to write a script, I can't really decide what I think about something. And so the daily or regular discipline of writing a script forces me, and in some cases it really is forced. I don't want to do it. I'd much rather go fishing or bird hunting. I would. But if I have to, I will. And there's something wonderful in that. Writing a script, as you know, forces you to think through everything about the issue. To have a much...
That's a really good point. Writing stuff down does kind of help you look at it more clearly. But damn, man.
Deeper understanding of it. At least it
he still has... where they fuck. He still has fuck you money, doesn't he? Oh,
right.
Yeah.
I can't think clearly without regular discipline of writing a script.
And we have... about 12% to the fuck you goal. Actually, about 23% to the fuck you goal.
Is me. And in some cases, it really is forced. I don't want to do it. I'd much rather go fishing or bird hunting. I would. But if I have to, I will. And there's something wonderful in that. Writing a script, as you know, forces you to think through everything about the issue. To have a much deeper understanding of it. At least for me, that's true. So I couldn't go too long without writing, or my IQ would drop dramatically. I don't think I'd ever recover.
We had Stephen Friend on here, and the other...
I guess if you live your life doing things a certain way for so long, and then suddenly you stop doing it, it's got to be jolting.
FBI whistleblower, and and importantly, and perhaps this is the most important thing about that story, one of their brothers and sisters has tattooed stick figures.
Tucker's living the life Sinatra wants. He would die for FU money. I wouldn't die for it because then I wouldn't be able to use it. But I don't even want FU money. I just want to pay my fucking electric bill at the studio without going, oh, God damn it.
Of me on their genitals. That's the defining issue.
How has that affected his dating life?
It's ruined it.
Well, I mean, I think it would kind of narrow the available population down a little
significantly. It's just me now. I'm the only person who sees that as an advantage. Oh, well, I am honoured. Do as you will. But also, on that, they said, of course, these FBI whistleblowers, that the FBI had a significant number of agents, that there were other law enforcement agencies there on January the 6th.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows that they had FBI agents at January 6th.
In fact, it was the whistleblowing on this subject
Of course.
that caused them all this grief. That in a sense, that there are some discrepancies, shall we say, on how that event was initially reported on with regards to what actually went down. Now, what you've been accused of in the mainstream after you received, I think it was like 40,000 hours of footage from your man McCarthy there, was that you sort of cherry-picked, is the phrase that often comes up, footage to deliberately show that it was, to a degree, a peaceful event.
You know what I want? I want the new nobody donations. That's what I want. The 44 and I think the 4503. That's what I want. That's a lot more obtainable than FU money.
And what is your sincere opinion of what went on January the 6th? And why do you feel that there is yet an attempt to regard it as a deliberate insurrection? And also within that, I guess the possibility for presenting moments of peace within 40,000 hours of footage does exist. So were you sincere in your presentation, or do you have a particular perspective on how it was?
I have, well, let me just say, one of my children was there working in the building and called me during it. And was right nearby when Ashley Babbitt was shot. So I was interested in it from the moment it happened. I was appalled by the vandalism outside, by fighting with police officers. I hate violence, from abortion.
Yeah, I think everybody watching was like, oh, fuck, this is going to turn badly. It says a lot about Tucker as a person, knowing that he could just be chilling, living the best life we could imagine, yet he spends his time on this shit, shit-talking left and right, fight for the truth and the American people. Best guy, Tuck. I mean, yes, Hakira, you are absolutely right. Thank you. He really is good guy, Tucker.
To the war in Ukraine. I mean,
like, if that were me, I don't know, man. I like to think that I would keep doing this shit, but half of me just goes, nah, man, we're going to sleep in. Then the other half's like, well, you don't sleep in now, so why did you think you would then? So I don't know. Take it for what it's worth.
I am consistent on that. I'm not a Catholic, but I share those. I definitely share those views. I'm not for the death penalty. I'm not for killing people. I'm not for hurting people. I'm not for violence.
I am pro-death.
And I've had those views for a long time. So, you know, any violence on January 6th, I oppose. I've said that many times. I was kind of happy to leave it where it was, which is this got completely out of hand. The only reason I ever got involved in commenting on it was, and we did a show that night saying, well, this is awful, right? What happened?
You know what? I'm going to be completely honest. You know what my goal is? I want a workshop, not a garage, an actual workshop where I can build shit in. That's what I want. Ventilation, sawhorses, a couple of benches, and space for my tools. That's what I want.
Was the lying about it was immediate. This was a racist, white supremacist insurrection. Well, okay. There was no indication to this day that race had anything to do with it at all. Like, nothing. These are people.
I've never seen one single thing that points to race having anything to do with January 6th.
People who thought the election was stolen from them. There's some evidence they were right. We could debate that, but that's what they thought. That's a meaningful thing. If you've got a big population in your country that
nobody truly looks at Joe Biden and goes, yeah, most popular president in American history. It just doesn't happen.
Doesn't believe that your elections are on the level, you need to figure out a way to convince them that the elections are on the level, or else you can't have democracy, because it's a faith-based system. So that was the...
If people go, I don't believe this election was legit, you can't go, well, shut up. You can't turn around and go, shut the fuck up. Why are you questioning it? It clearly was. Okay, how? Shut up.
First thing I noticed, there was no effort at all to convince people, actually, electronic voting machines are secure, which they are not. By the way, that's a lie. In any country that has electronic voting machines is by definition at risk of...
I genuinely don't know how in just a couple of years we went from this election was hacked, rigged, nothing about it was legit, we must question it, to America has the most secure election process in world history. Those two things cannot be true at once.
Having its election stolen. By definition, no country that cared about democracy would have electronic voting machines, okay? First thing. But no one even... And by the way, many Democrats have made that point. Not now, but 10 years ago. There was no effort.
Isn't that kind of the studio? No, the studio is for audio, film, visual, YouTube work. I want a workshop, like a wooden shack outside with one of those butane heater gimmicks. You know what I'm talking about? That's what I want.
To reassure anybody, they immediately used it as a cudgel to make their political opponent shut up, and in a lot of cases to send them to jail. So I noticed this. I'm like, wait a second. Nobody here is operating in good faith at all. They're just immediately lying with maximum aggression. And anyone who asks questions about it, like me, and if you could go back and look at the tape, my first 5 shows on January 6th.
We should have the right to question. No, we shouldn't have the right. It should be our duty to question everything the government does. It should be our duty to do so.
We're like, well, yeah, it's bad, but I don't think you're telling the truth about what actually happened. Shut up! Racist! What? So that's always...
It's for a lot more than filming Speakeasy, but you get the idea.
Is the key for me. If it's like an infection, you know it's infected when it...
And if everything goes to plan, I should have a new Speakeasy out Friday or Monday at the latest.
It hurts. You press it. You recoil. They immediately recoiled when you asked any questions about January 6th. And that was a tip-off to me. I mean, I had no thought.
That's it. Question everything, always.
In my head, as I watched this happen on television and in the subsequent weeks, that U.S. law enforcement or military agencies had anything to do with it. That never crossed my mind. I never thought it was a false flag or anything like that. I'm not a conspiracist by temperament. I never thought that. And then I interviewed the chief of the Capitol Police, Stephen Sund, in an interview that was never aired on Fox, by the way. I was fired before it could air.
How's the box opening vid coming on? That went out like 2 weeks ago.
I'm going to interview him again. But Stephen Sund was the totally non-political, worked for Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this was not some right-wing activist. He was the chief of the Capitol Police on January 6th. And he said, oh, yeah. That crowd was filled with federal agents. What? Yes. Well, he would know, of course, because he was in charge of security at the site. So the more time has passed, now it's been 2.5 years, it becomes really obvious that core claims they made about January 6th were lies. And my view about...
We could tell immediately that a lot of these things were lies. Like right off the bat, we could tell that they were lies.
Events and about people is if you catch someone telling a lie about one thing, the first question you have is, what else are you lying about? If you say to your wife, where were you? I was at the grocery store. If you find out she was not at the grocery store, then it raises, okay, probably not just lying about being at the grocery store, were you? Like, what is this exactly? Why were you lying about that? And that's kind of the way I feel about January. Like, what is this? They're clearly lying. That's provable. Why? And, you know.
But it's not just a little lie like I went to the grocery store and you were at the fucking mall. It's not something like that. This is a giant lie that they know they've been caught in, but still just won't give up the ghost.
Oh, I'm the last person. I'm often accused of being...
Yes, that's exactly it. They don't want fucking feedback. No feedback.
Conspiracy, not on the opposite.
Take what we say, and if you have anything negative to say about it, shut up, racist.
I grew up in a very stable country, the United States, in the 70s and 80s, where people didn't indulge in conspiracies because there weren't any obvious ones afoot, right? I mean, we took things at face value. We trusted our government, by and large. But the amount of lying around January 6th, and it was obvious in the tapes that I showed, is really distressing. And anyone who's covering for those lies should be ashamed of himself. And that would include almost the entire American media, including Fox News. People at Fox News. Fox News, to its great credit, let me air that, and I'm grateful that they did. But there are people there who were mad at me.
Yep, accept the narrative, pleb.
For airing that, really? Why? If you think I'm cherry picking it and taking it out of context, show me where. And by the way, I didn't make the claim that it was entirely peaceful. It wasn't. Police officers were injured. More police officers were injured at the riots in front of the White House the year before, but whatever. All injuries to police officers or anyone else.
We're not allowed to talk about that one, though. The one the year before with the fires that they had to rush the president to the safety bunker and all that, those were good riots. These ones are bad riots.
These are bad. I'm certainly not making excuses for it, but I'm asking obvious questions. You said this happened. For example, there was a guy called the QAnon shaman, Jacob Chansley. They put the guy in prison for years. There is surveillance tape that they hid until I aired it, showing the Capitol Police trying lots of doors, trying to get into the Senate chamber, the sacrosanct chamber that he wasn't allowed to be in, and then escorting him in. And he kind of wanders around like he's taking a hit of mescaline, just kind of, you know what I mean? And like he says a prayer, he thanks God for the Capitol Police, and then he wanders out. Now, there are a lot of conclusions you could draw from that, but you cannot call that guy an insurrectionist. That's a lie. And by the way, an insurrection is a very specific meaning, and I'm pedantic about words because they're the currency that I trade in. I mean, that's what I do. I use words for a living, so I care about their specific meanings. That was not an...
And this is a thing that we've really let go to we've really let fall to the side, is that as somebody who does talk and do this shit for a living, we have our own little, ebb and flow, our own little way of talking, but words have specific meanings, and we need to remember that when we talk. We need to say what we mean, and we need to articulate what we're trying to say better.
Insurrection. It was not armed, and its purpose was not to overthrow the government. It was a spasm of rage that Trump definitely helped inspire. That's true. And at the election results, okay, you know, I'm not actually for that. I don't think leaders should be making people more pissed in general. But that's what it was. It was not an insurrection. And to put Jacob Chansley, an American citizen, a Navy veteran, in jail for years after he was let into the Senate chamber by uniformed Capitol Hill police officers?
Dave G, you're exactly right. Fox News is literally nothing without Tucker. Their ratings are trash now.
And then I play that, and I'm the bad guy? Fuck you. Like, what do you make of that? I'm sorry, it makes me mad just thinking about it. I said I wasn't going to be a hater. That makes me mad.
Hey, media matters for America. Go fuck yourself.
And I see people on other channels, it's outrageous. He's trying to minimize January 6th. Well, but this guy went to prison. You ever been to prison?
Only for visits.
Right, okay.
It's not very nice.
You don't want to go to prison
clarify.
to take a man's freedom away and call him all these names for something he didn't do and then show no remorse at all when you are exposed to have lied about it. There's a human being who was locked away in a prison. It's an outrage to me.
Tucker.
It's not only an outrage, it's an undeniable miscarriage of justice. And the only reason it is a miscarriage of justice is because it was supposed to be that. They turned around and they said, do you think that you guys are going to be able to riot and have your voice heard, express your displeasure the way we have? Well, you got another thing coming, buddy. And they were like, you go to solitary confinement for 8 months. Two separate justice systems, man.
Like, would you mind if I spoke?
Sorry.
Worked very hard to get in this position. Right? See that Iraq war? Like, you know, that was brilliant when you went on that podcast and went like that you're ashamed that you participated and that you rallied for that war. Now to hear you talk about Jan 6, you're saying like that sort of at the beginning you had no axe to grind, and broadly speaking, you oppose violence of any kind, and you oppose violence. Yeah, I know, I believe you. And you oppose violence against the police, perhaps in particular. Now, though, it seems that you are inquiring, if not suggesting, that there was another aim. Are you saying that it was allowed the Capitol Police to be funded differently and more extensively? Are you saying that it facilitated further authoritarianism, that it enabled people to smear the MAGA movement, that it created more...
I really like Tucker. I'm glad he's doing his own thing now. It's really nice to see him off the leash of Fox. It's really refreshing. And honestly, to see this kind of honesty... To see this kind of honesty from somebody like Tucker Carlson is, I think it's beautiful. I think it's fantastic.
Opportunity for surveillance laws and censorship. One of the sort of techniques or critiques that we use here on our channel when looking at news is, oh, does this allow people to censor more? Does this allow people to surveil more? Does this allow, for example, like a sort of just to use a sort of something anecdotal and contemporaneous, that there's a Just Stop Oil movement in this country at the moment, and whenever you see footage of them sort of blocking roads and sort of road users dragging them out of the road, it's annoying. I say this as a person who sort of loves nature, loves the environment, feels that profit shouldn't be put ahead of respect and love for the environment. I can't help but feel that the media has an agenda in continually presenting us with these annoying images of Just Stop Oil getting in the way of ordinary commuters who are just trying to get to work. And I'm beginning to now critique media from that perspective. Oh, they are using this event in order to elicit these emotions, whether it's war or the events of January 6th. Do you believe that there is, as George Carlin would say, a convergence of interest between the state and its desire to regulate and corporations and their desire to...
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely. We covered it on the AAA. They literally had to make a law that Biden, or not make a law, they had to rule that the Biden administration could not work with major corporations to censor Americans. That's an actual thing they had to put in place because it was so blatant and obvious, because it was happening so much.
Profit, big tech and their desire to capture data, the state and their need to get data. What is it you're observing? Because when I'm listening to you, you don't sound like a regular TV anchor anymore. And in fact, one of the things I'm offering is that that's not a role that...
Where's Alex Jones when we need him?
Going to exist for much longer, because the centralization of authority is becoming so rapid and so radical that if you even work...
No, disagree. The centralization of authority is becoming the same. People in government and people in corporations are working hand in hand. They are both profiting. That's the centralization. It's not just the government. There's no way it's just the government.
In this space, you know, with
Alex is in our hearts. And I guess the 1776, but in our hearts.
these new EU laws being passed that will mean that social media platforms will be heavily fined 6% of their annual revenue and that they can be censored. The Five Eyes countries all passing censorship laws. In a sense, to become an independent media voice will be to become an activist. So with regard to the January 6th, do you think these events are used to create particular outcomes? Do you think it's just opportunistic? And where do you feel your personal role is as an independent media broadcaster is now?
Well, I think my role...
Oh, that's right, Top Hat Tengu. They're trying to appeal the court's decision too, because they want to actively work with social media corporations to censor fucking Americans. It's so disgusting. It's so fucking disgusting.
Is to tell the truth to the extent I...
Makes me want to... any one of the John Wick or New Nobody donations my way through certain areas.
can see it, you know, to say what
Probably, you know what? It makes me want a 4503.
I think is true. Always with the knowledge that we see everything, you know, through a glass darkly. We don't see things clearly. We don't have perspective on ourselves, the world around us. We get a lot wrong. I've gotten a lot wrong, that's for sure. But you do your best. And you cannot allow people to force you to lie, period. So that's how I see my role. I think you're asking the right question. And I asked the same thing about the climate movement. I mean, I'm bewildered by it. Now, apart from my own family, there's nothing more important to me.
Because it's bewildering. It make it no sense. Makes no sense.
Than nature. I think I spend an above average time in nature, amount of time. I mean, I've organized my whole life to be in nature. So I really, really care about it. And I'm very upset about the many ways in which it's despoiled, at least in my country. I mean, nature's not doing well. The environmental movement is gone where I live. And we pollute. We put up chain stores and strip malls and pave things we should not pave. We are very tough on nature in the United States. And the environmental movement does nothing to stop that. And so my question for the climate...
Because they're concerned with lobbying and getting money and donations. That's literally all it is.
People, and I have no doubt the climate is changing. It's always changed. I live in a place that was completely sculpted by the glaciers, which only melted 10,000 years ago. There were people living where I live in northwestern Maine when the glaciers receded, 10,000, the Native Americans, 10,000 years ago. So like, this is a feature of life on Earth. And so I have no doubt it's changing again. And I would be completely open to the possibility that people's behavior is accelerating that change or driving it to some extent. It doesn't sound crazy to me. I don't think it's proven, but I'm open to it. Of course I am. My question is really simple. Which of your solutions to climate change disempower you? So when you act your father on behalf of your children, you are doing things because you love them. They're not necessarily in your interest. Like, you'd rather go take a sauna or do some yoga or hop on your wife. But no, you have a child with needs, so you love that child, so you do something for that child. That's what it looks like to serve and love someone, is to do something you don't want to do.
I'd hop on the wife for sure.
Doesn't help you in any way, but at least potentially helps that other person. I see the climate movement not doing one thing that doesn't enrich or empower the climate movement and its corporate sponsors. Not one. So for example, not to be boorish here in lecture, I'll stop with this. Like, if I understand, you know, the ecology correctly, trees are like helpful if you're worried about rising CO2, correct? Because they consume it and then emit what? Oxygen. So if you're really worried about climate change caused by carbon dioxide, you'd probably be planting a lot of trees. I don't see a ton of, and I would be very for that as someone who truly loves trees and spends a lot of time thinking about trees and have a lot of trees and maintain a lot of trees. I love trees almost more than anything. So, like, where's the nationwide effort to reforest the United States? I don't see.
That's not what the climate people are interested in. They don't give a shit about that. It's lobbying, getting political influence, and money. That's it. Full stop.
It. Instead, I see a lot of solar panels from China that don't work, that actually wreck the environment.
Solar panels and wind farms are fucking awful for the environment, but we're not allowed to talk about that.
Industrial wind farms that wreck where I live. Like, I live near them. I know what they do. They kill all these birds of prey. It's like, they're destroying the environment, but they're becoming richer. So on January 6th, tell me one solution that doesn't make you more powerful.
Yeah.
There's not one. So that's an indication of bad faith to me. And of course, you know, I'm not going to be boorish and I'll stop, but anyone who's interested in the uses to which January 6th has been put by the people in charge in Washington can look it up. I mean, the surveillance that was justified, the total capture of our banks, for example, by the FBI in the wake of January 6th is completely shocking to any civil libertarian. You can't call my bank and find out what I spent money on. You don't have a...
That was one of the things that we brought up. We beat that drum for weeks, and then it went completely quiet. Got a complete news blackout. Nobody covered it.
warrant? What? That's not allowed under our Constitution, but they did it because it was an insurrection. Okay. So, you know, I don't know. I can't even guess as the mechanics of January 6th. Did the many federal agents in the crowd do this? Did they go along with it? I don't know the answer, and I'm not going to speculate. But I know in the aftermath of January 6th, that event was used by predators in our political sphere to increase their power and to disempower the population they supposedly serve. And I'm very offended by that. Not because I'm some crazed populist. I'm not. I don't want to burn anything down. I'm like very temperamentally conservative. I like to build things, not break them. But you can't look at me with a straight face
I like to build things too.
and tell me you're defending democracy when you get JP Morgan to go through my credit card statements. You're lying. That's my only point. You're lying.
Yes, it's a good point. So
You're spinning me up, man.
I suppose that both the pandemic era and the current war can have that critique equally well applied. Who benefits from this ability to surveil and impose, for example, vaccine passports? Who benefits from our inability to openly communicate on these subjects? It always appears that there is a sort of an invisible hand guiding these events, guiding the conversation, amplifying certain voices, diminishing others, and it always appears to somehow benefit centralist, authoritarian institutions, be they governmental, corporate, or financial.
Yeah, it's shocking. All these things that these people do tend to benefit themselves at the detriment of other people. It's really shocking. I would never believe. Play? Hello?
Human, and war does it especially. And if you'll pardon me, and I don't mean this as criticism of your country, which I love, but I've spent the last week in England, and I've driven all around.
It's nice, isn't it?
Well, it's beyond belief how pretty it is. But one thing that just I can't get over is the stark change in architecture between 1939, when you all entered the war after the invasion of Poland, and 1945, when you, quote, won, okay? Architecture changed completely, and it went from designs that complemented the landscape around them and local material, you know, used in ways to, I think, elevate the human spirit, to a kind of architecture that clearly hates people, that is designed to oppress the human spirit and make people feel without value, worthless, and that is ugly and disposable and made out of materials that are not worthy to be lived in, that are disgusting. And you see that not just in England, but also in the United States. Pre-war, as you well know, is a selling point for apartments in New York for a reason. Everything changed with the war. And there's something about war that...
And you know what? Miss Sin and I were just talking about this because I had to go to probate yesterday. So we're downtown, we're looking around like, God, these buildings... Cleveland is truly, you go there early in the day, the sun's just coming up. Cleveland is truly a gorgeous city. But then you see these modern buildings that are just so fuck ugly. It's sad.
It changes people in a very, very deep way, down to the architecture, which is an expression of how we feel about each other. The buildings that we build to house our fellow man say a lot about how we feel about our fellow man, in my view. And after the Second World War, I mean, it completely changed, and it became very aggressively anti-people. Like, what kind of person could come up with brutalist architecture or its many tributaries, and there are many. Brutalism is just the most obvious one, but all architecture post-war is really kind of brutalist, actually.
Yeah, brutalist is nasty.
What are you saying when you build a building like that? You're saying that the people who occupy the building are worth nothing. That's what you're saying. Whereas you drive to the Cotswolds, and people in the pre-industrial age, with no electricity and no machines, built buildings that are still standing and true to this day, using local limestone and thatch. And the result was beautiful. And by the way, I'm not just saying this as an Anglo whose ancestors lived in this country. I'm saying this just as a human being. I think if you brought someone from the streets of Tokyo to the Cotswolds and said, what do you think of that building? He would say, that's beautiful. Because beauty is inherent. Every person recognizes beauty. Okay, it's not culturally specific, actually. A Shinto temple in Kyoto, I recognize it immediately as beautiful because it is. Because it's consistent.
That's one of the few things that transcends all culture, is the ability to appreciate something beautiful.
With the symmetry of nature. But the war changed. The war always does that. War makes people less human. It hurts them in some deep way. Even the survivors I'm talking about, even the ones whose legs weren't blown off.
It's interesting to me how often you appear to be referring to the ulterior energetic force, emotion, or essence of a thing.
Yes.
I.e. that beauty.
Yeah, modern art buildings are, dude, it's so nasty. It looks like whoever built it doesn't give a shit. Like millennial gray everything. Ugh, it's so fucking gross.
could perhaps be the manifestation of love. I've obviously myself observed many times that municipal and state buildings were once plainly an expression of a contract between the people and their government of a good faith relationship.
I think that. I just thought that. I walked up with my wife in the rain on a village hall in Eastlich, in this town in the Cotswolds, and the village hall was so beautiful. And I thought, whoever built that cared about the people. It was built by the people who live there for the people who live there, and they loved the people who live there because they were related to them or knew them. And that hall, I mean, it was built by peasants without machines.
Yes. It's impossible to ignore, though, that beneath these, even these architectural changes that you refer to, is an insidious economic ideology, i.e. that it's, of course, there is a kind of a disdain for the population and the public, and this disdain is something we're continually talking about, whether it's the media, whether it's the state.
What's with the gray fad? I don't know. It looks it's so nasty. Just, yuck. Yuck.
Whether it's private corporations, you can kind of tell they don't like you, and that they don't respect you. So when populist figures emerge, i.e.
You know what a good fad we should get into, though? I know somebody out there is rolling their eyes, probably Miss Sin. The nobody donos.
Most notably Trump, who somehow seems to give timbre to this idea that, hey, they don't like us very much. It's pretty plain that, you know, for a while, when you...
Right there, that's Trump's appeal right there.
When you were talking about Roosevelt a moment ago, that he came from, the bourgeoisie or the intelligentsia, it's sort of notable that...
Ooh, that's a good point, Luna. Communists love gray. Think about all the apartments and shit that they built. The North Korean apartments. Gray, bland, no color, nothing. Just awful, stupid, ugly.
There's a requirement for an alliance between people who understand, experientially, systemic...
Nobody's awesome, which is why I made donations out of it, but... we only saw the one.
The way that systems conduct themselves, the way systems operate, the bourgeoisie, the intelligentsia, whatever word you want to use for that critique, and ordinary people. This, I believe, is the communicative bridge that needs to be built. I've long felt that it is disgusting that most people now feel voiceless, and not most, many people feel that they're
modern architects are just so like shiny square, shiny triangle, just on a shiny square. It's lame. It's lame and it's ugly. Some millennial horseshit.
Electoral agencies are not worthy of trust. Media is not worthy of trust. There will never be another election, I don't imagine, in your country, Tucker, where the other side goes, oh, well done, winning that election. Whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, the other side's just going to go, it was corrupt, it was disgusting, look at these machines, there were Russian agents involved, you can't rely on this. So there is much that...
Yeah, no, that's all out the window. That is all out the window. We are never having a legit election again in the United States, ever, period, full stop.
Needs to be healed, and obviously what we continually offer here is that what's required is indeed, beyond an investigation and an interrogation of those agencies, new systems of decentralization to move democracy as close as possible to the people affected by it, which I suppose is a principle that's evident in federalism, but something that we can discuss more in a moment. Tucker Carlson has talked about the great beauty of this nation in some ways, and I mean this with all due love and respect to our cousins across the Atlantic, a country that in a way invented your country a little bit. You've just had Independence Day. It was a mistake to throw all that tea into
what do you mean in some ways? It definitely invented our country. I mean,
No, it was a good thing we threw that tea. Fuck you and your tea.
We're an English country.
And with what a lovely language we gave you and all. And so in a temporary celebration of what we do here in this country, here's a word from our sponsors. Please stay with us, because afterwards me and Tucker are going to talk a lot more about the military-industrial complex, how deeply embedded they are in the system. I'm going to ask Tucker, even though there are probably contractual restrictions for what Tucker can and can't talk about, I'm going to say, why do you reckon Fox sacked you? Do you reckon it was Jan 6? Do you reckon it's like speaking out too much, a bit too much Glenn Greenwald on a Sunday afternoon? What was it exactly that you reckon? So stay with us. Also consider joining me for community and ask a second.
Skip.
For those who are in the United States, text your liver, satisfied. Some fantastic questions still to come, some of them sent in by you. Press the red button, join us on Locals. Right now that we're deeply embedded in Rumble, why the hell did you leave Fox? Tell us the truth. What are you not permitted to say? Tell us. So do you think they sacked it?
How much fucking cocaine is Russell Brand on at any given point in time? Because dude is just like bugging.
Was a Jan 6? Do you think they sacked you because you're too anti-establishment, too anti-war? Tell us.
I honestly don't know. I will say, my views changed dramatically over the course of 20 years. As I've said many times, I was a kind of half-hearted booster of the war in Iraq, which is hard to believe. But that was in 2003, and so my views for the last 20 years have been, and I realized, and I've repented of that, and I feel sick even thinking about it now. But my views have remained pretty much the same for the last 20 years. They've evolved, as things have changed. But in general, I've been skeptical of the storylines and all kinds of different things. And I certainly was for the 14 years I was at Fox. And they were always, they didn't agree with me, of course, I don't think. But they were always very nice to me, and they always let me say what I wanted. Not one time did they tell me not to say anything. So I was always grateful to Fox, and I am in retrospect grateful to Fox for that. So that never changed up until the moment they called me and said, you know, we're taking the show off the air. And so I can only speculate. I know, but I do think as a general matter, not even about me, the war in Ukraine is a red line for a lot of people in business and politics. And you see it in our politics in the U.S., where the leaders of the Republican Party in the Congress, who really
hey, Baba Yaga,
in my view, are now supporting sending cluster bombs to Ukraine. Ukraine is losing the war, obviously. The United States...
How is it even questionable if Ukraine is losing or not? Like, clearly.
And Ukrainians are dying in huge numbers, and the country's being destroyed. And so the U.S. could force a peace like tonight. They could. Uniquely, they have that power. And they won't. And they're continuing to allow Ukrainians to be killed and the country to be devastated. So I don't know their motive. I can only guess. But I know that if you criticize that, they really are intent on making you be quiet.
Yeah, I mean, we all can guess the motive, right? Like, we all know. We don't have to talk about it. We just know, because if we talk about it, that puts the channel at risk. But we all know.
With the pandemic being reframed in such a short period of time, and with this cultural amnesia always being
Has it been
elicited,
reframed?
in a sense it has. Like, we now know that there were no clinical trials for transmission, that 96% of people
Oh, they were lying?
asymptomatic cannot spread the disease, that there were considerable, like the myocarditis, all of that, that lockdowns didn't
You're making
work.
me feel bad for getting all those shots.
That the 6 feet to 10 feet was arbitrary, and now we're looking, and now already we're being invited to kind of forget that sort of happened. Do you? And with Biden inadvertently saying Iraq instead of Ukraine, do you feel that is these kind of Freudian?
Biden is so far away from lucid, it's not even funny.
Errors are simply because in time we will regard this conflict in the way we regarded Iraq. This is not to say not sympathetic towards Ukrainian people, but that it was a war primarily motivated by the interests of the military-industrial complex, the stated plan for BlackRock to rebuild Ukraine in a comparable way that Halliburton were able to exploit the conflict in Iraq, and indeed a secondary agenda to diminish Russia's capacity to be a superpower on the world stage. Do you think these things will become explicit and broadly accepted? And in a similar way, the people that have been rallying for war, using peculiar tropes that we always assume to be of the right, of patriotism and a lack of alliance, do you think that those people will undergo some kind of reckoning, Tucker?
I hope so. I mean, the key to joy and wisdom is admitting that you're not God. That is the key. That's the key to life, in my opinion, admitting you're not God. And if you can't do that, you are doomed, because you're not God. By the way, that's a fact that you can't change. You are not God. Okay, period.
Breaking news for me.
So
I think they say it's a truly wise man who knows he knows nothing. I think that's the saying, or something similar to that. And that's what a lot of people forget. No, at fucking BLM activist 252, you are not aware of everything. So just relax a little bit. It's okay to not know some stuff.
Hit me pretty hard, that one. That's the moment. That's my take home. Oh, okay. Well, that's it. I'm out.
It's essential to happiness and to honesty to admit when you're wrong. And it's so freeing. I mean, it's the basis of the recovery movement. I realized I was powerless. And I just have lived that. And I understand very well, personally, the human impulse to hide being wrong. No one wants to admit being wrong, because in so doing, you admit you lack the power that you pretended that you had. But
I think it's perfectly fine to be wrong. You can just admit it. Yeah, I fucked up. I was wrong. Sorry.
I just find it so liberating. I was wrong. I thought this. It turned out not to be true. I was wrong. I didn't know. I am not God. Once you say that, then you realize you have nothing to be afraid of. By the way, everybody already knows what you're lying about. People know who you are. I tell my children this all the time. You think you're getting away with it. Oh, I'm secretly whatever it is. Everybody already knows. And they love you anyway, or they hate you anyway. It doesn't matter. We know, because we can smell. We're like dogs. We know who the other person is instantly. All the pretense is pointless. And so how beautiful is it to just say, nope, here's who I am.
Yeah.
And they can't. And I look at someone like Tony Blinken, who's our Secretary of State, who's obviously way over his head, not a genius, but probably above average in cleverness, but not, he's not like a great statesman or a great person or whatever. And he feels, I could just watch him on television. He feels this burden to pretend, I'm Secretary of State. I got it all under control. You have no freaking idea, Tony Blinken. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen. You've been wrong again and again and again, but you can't admit it. So you're terrified of being exposed. And this is, I'm not attacking Tony Blinken or singling him out. I hope not unfairly. This is where we all find ourselves. God, I hope nobody knows. Whatever it is, I'm secretly gay, or I gained 20 pounds, or I'm actually very vain. Everyone already knows. Calm down. Just admit it. And
yeah, you're not shocking anybody with any of these reveals. Like, yeah, we know. We can see. We have eyeballs.
People who are wrong about COVID can take the light.
See, I love this one. I love that one. Oh, we got the reloads. Russell Brand sounds like my inner monologue without the Adderall. Woo, get some. Yeah. Yeah, I know that's right. Thank you, Valine. Bringing us up to almost 30% to goal. If you want to contribute to the goal, to yeet PDF file Pete, you know exactly how to do so. We have a long way, but he needs a yeet. He's needing a yeetin'.
Affirming path of admitting the dignity preserving. When you admit you're wrong, you actually preserve your dignity. When you continue to lie, you lose your dignity. People don't get that. They think it's the opposite. Oh, I have to. No, I was kind of. Stop the bullshit. We all know. Admit it and become fully human. Then you can respect yourself. How can you respect yourself if you're lying? You can't.
This is, I believe, the undergirding idea of perennialism by Aldous Huxley, in where he contrasts various theologies and notes that the primary idea, whether it's in the Vedas or coming from Meister Eckhart, is this transcendence of self. The acknowledgement that this vessel, this idea, this synaptic crash of self, this mess of memory and projection can be transcended through and via a connection to God. And
Yes.
this I was wrong ultimately becomes I was irrelevant. The Russellness is irrelevant. There is a way through this. There is a pathway. The denial of this transcendence or even this immanent relationship with a higher power, a higher force, defines our age of materialism, rationalism. All things can be measured in ways. This is why you have lumpen and brutal block buildings, abundant, and an annihilation of elegant thatch.
It's because it's cheaper. Nobody wants to pay a stonemason anymore. Nobody wants to pay actual workers. They want to make the cheapest, most profitable building that they can. Full stop. Play.
Strewn across the countryside because there is a denial of beauty, there is a denial of God. And I feel that
Because they're challenges to our power. The idea that a flower is more beautiful than anything we could create, and that a white pine is more enduring than anything we will ever build. That's such a challenge. The idea that there are mysteries we can't explain.
Yes.
This is why they call you a conspiracy nut. This is why they become hysterical when you raise questions that challenge their version of events. Because what you're really doing, it's not even about January 6th or UFOs or the Kennedy assassination. It's about revealing their limits.
Yes.
They don't have the answers, and they can't admit it, because admitting that they don't have the answers is the same as admitting they're not God. And I'm only saying that's the most liberating thing you can do.
It's curious how it can be distilled to something so identifiably personal. Like I saw you once interview someone who went, no, I do the same. I do the same. Like when I think you were talking about gun laws or something. That in a way, people want feudal power. People want total power. I want absolute dominion over my life. But there now is, of course, a tendency to mask this intention. Yes. The idea that this is for your security. This is for your safety. We are trying to help you. What was it? This is what sort of busted me up, Tucker, during the whole...
Just goose step for me. Stop lying.
What's the big deal? We just march through Nuremberg.
Totally true, though.
Yeah, just call for genocide. You're good. Do it. Play.
I'm more comfortable with that. Just put on a uniform and point a gun at me. Stop telling me it's for my own good. You're lying. Like, I know that's not true.
Authoritarianism necessarily had to become veiled. Those kind of optics of the rallies and the flags was identifiably a problem.
You know what? That's another really good red flag that you can kind of look at. If someone goes, it's for your own good. It's not. It never is.
But the urge and the will to power has remained consistent.
Of course.
This is, I suppose, in a sense, where we appear to align very strongly is we don't like being told what to do, that we're willing to surrender, willing to learn, willing to take on new ideas. A few more just little personal questions. They're not personal, they're about your career. How do you feel about the FBI hacking your phone, mate, with the Putin thing and being called a Putin puppet?
A Putin puppet. I've never, the Putin puppet thing.
Yeah, we're from the government. We're here to help. No.
I've never taken seriously. I am a passionate Tolstoy fan.
Oh, man. I started working on a new donation. I'm going to try to have it up tomorrow, but if not, Friday for sure. You guys will love it. It'll be a little bit more, it'll be on the lower end, but it'll be great.
No, predates Putin, by the way. I love Tolstoy, and I mean that. The Kreutzer Sonatas, like I just read it, it's like an amazing book.
Is that thing where you talk about Christianity? Have you read them essays on Christianity?
Yeah, well, of course I have. And I'm not sure I quite agree. The Kreutzer Sonata is all about how sex is bad, which I strongly disagree with, but he's just an amazing writer. But I've never been to Russia. I don't speak the language. I have no special, I mean, the whole thing is insane. And by the way, that never bothered me because I'm the most I'm so American, it's like a joke.
Yeah, you are really American.
I'm the most American person I've ever met.
You're so American. You've been so American since you've arrived on the premises. You've been so American, shaking people out. And an American just turned up inadvertently, just magnetized by you.
Asking people personal questions.
I'm from Sacramento. How are you? Where do you live? You've been all American everywhere, spilling your Americana up everything.
It's so true. It's so, and Exactly, for good and bad, mostly bad. But
I want to ask you an important question, I think. There's nothing to suggest that the state of nation is a permanent one. It's a relatively recent advent. It's pretty plain that one of the ways that the cultural war can be continually leveraged, even issues where I imagine you have strong views, and indeed these are arguments that define your country, certainly more than mine, although everyone's affected by them. Pro-gun versus gun control, pro-choice versus pro-life, the identity politics issues. Are we ever, as a there's nothing in our evolution that would suggest we should live in countries of 300 million people all following a single credo. Isn't it necessary and indeed obvious that this ulterior driving energy, be that through technology or different forms of identification? I mean, imagine if like 2,000 years ago you'd grabbed someone from Iceland and someone from Sudan and someone from London and said, right, you lot, you're all the same, live together according to one bit. It'd be an absurd thing to do. So isn't it obvious and necessary that what has to change is the nature of democracy itself? And would you, and I guess I imagine I can guess, because you've said about, shooting's a hobby of yours, you've already said that you are anti-abortion, would you be willing to, as it were, stand on an ideological, if not political ticket with people that had opposite views on you?
I think you should have to. I think you should have to at least consider running with somebody who has different views.
When it came to like trans and raising kids trans and stuff like that, if it meant that you and your community would be completely at liberty to raise your children and run your community how you wanted to.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have no plans to stand for office. Is that the same as running for office?
Yeah, we stand.
You
here.
stand, we
We're
run.
English. I've come here. Now I'll be here for a while. Simply elect me. Hey, can I have some power?
And in America, we run as fast as we can.
Sprinting about, gathering up them donations.
But of course, and by the way, I mean, the real, like, the Tower of Babel didn't work for a reason. That is commentary on, written by the ancient Hebrews 3,000 years ago, but still a sort of deep commentary on people and how to organize a society. And like human differences, I said at the outset, people are united in their value. I think their value, each person's value is identical because they're all created by the Creator. But people are different. I mean, they are. I have 4 children. They're not all the same, right? People are different. And they kind of live the way they want to live.
We need to stop treating people like just because they're black, white, gay, whatever, they all have the same mindset. That's just not true. Individuals exist.
And it's sort of any effort to make them live in ways that you want them to live that they don't want to live, like, is doomed to concentration camps, kind of, in the end. Like, you need to use a lot of force to make people change basic habits that they've decided they want. So that suggests to me much smaller administrative zones or countries or whatever you want to call them. The problem is technology makes it really easy to manipulate huge groups of people. The drive out here from London, my driver's from Brazil, a country I love. It's very similar to the United States in a lot of ways. And she's from southern Brazil. And I said, all are Brazilians in London. Yeah, but most are from the north. Do you see them? No, I don't see them. I don't trust them. I don't like them. Oh, they're from they're from northern Brazil. Okay. So like, these are subtleties that I can't. And I said, well, why don't you split into 2 countries? And she said, everybody wants to, but we can't because we've got a central government and it's not in their interest. And I thought that's the story of a lot of the world. Yeah. It really is. That, like, I have a lot in common with my neighbors. I lived on a street in Washington for many years where I think everyone on the street voted differently from the way I vote. There were a bunch of different races on the street, and I felt like we had a lot in common. And I think everyone on the street felt that way about everyone else because it was our street. Do you know what I mean? Yes. So, like, we would have been...
There's that community argument again.
And a pretty good self-governing...
I've been called woke for being gay. Man, people have their little boxes that they like to put everybody in. Oh, you're gay? That means you're woke. That means you're a Biden supporter. All this shit. Oh, you don't like Joe Biden? Well, that means you're a Trumper or fascist, whatever. No, it is not a little box that people can just fit into. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Country of 11 houses or whatever in Northwest DC because we had this fundamental thing in common, which is geography. And I do think ultimately we'll get back to that because I think it's a much more natural way. Loose alliances of small places is a much more natural way to govern, in my opinion. But we're a long way from that.
Yes, and it seems that the homogeneity ultimately is driven by systems of dominion and the requirement for profit.
Exactly.
And that the ideology is secondary and its function is to create division. That's its point. Even when we as a team start talking about...
I will say it does kind of seem like a lot of the stuff happening right now is done on purpose.
How do we talk to Tucker about trans issues, cultural issues? When we're talking about it, we start saying, oh, it's difficult, isn't it? Like, you know, as soon as we start talking about trans athletes or virtue signaling or positive affirmation, it becomes, in a sense, it becomes divisive. My personal position is, like, the way I want to raise my children how I want to raise my children. Of course, you have to immediately caveat that with, of course, there are some areas where you think, well, what if people are mistreating their children in ways that are obvious? You immediately have to asterisk that. But that aside, I want to raise my children how I want to raise my children. I don't want anybody else telling me how to raise my children, and I recognize that the price of that is other people are going to raise their children how they want to, and the aesthetics of that and the descriptions of that are almost none of my business.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I mean, that's a whole separate, you know, the question of whether you should be told how to raise your children by people who don't have children, which is where we wound up now. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, so here we are, like, is it possible for anyone left in the mainstream media to say what they think? That's from @Lorna, who's one of our followers on Locals.
I can answer that really clearly. No.
No. I mean,
I'm a bigot because I don't give a shit who or how anyone fucks. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You can within certain boundaries. You know, like you can be against Bud Light or for Bud Light or whatever, but you can't say Ukraine is not a democracy, so stop saying we're fighting for democracy. You cannot say that. Right. No one does.
Hey, this is from @SunPatchPatria. With all these conspiracy theories coming out as true, is there anything that is still covered up that you think holds weight? You know, now with there's more information about UFOs and stuff, do you think there's anything that's not been uncovered that you think...
Yeah. I mean, Biden just reclassified the Kennedy documents 60 years after his assassination. No one, even peripherally involved, is still alive. So what could possibly be the sources and...
Oof. That's... Well, Biden was, but yeah.
Methods that were supposedly showing the world by declassifying these are so outdated they're irrelevant. They were using disappearing ink in 1963. So why in the world would we be continuing to hide the truth about the Kennedy assassination 60 years later? And of course, the answer.
Have we seen any new Nobody donos yet? We saw the 4040 Friday. We're still waiting on the 44 and the 4503. Just waiting to see.
The answer is obvious because it implicates not individuals, but institutions. And reveals them as complicit in a murder and in the overthrow of the U.S. government. And the U.S. government is complicit in the overthrow of the U.S. government. And that's the truth. I know that for a fact because
Today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 most infamous man-made disasters. Number 1.
The 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the one that guaranteed women the right to vote, was ratified in 1920.
That's some of the funniest shit. The QT minority of the LGBT community have done more... have done more for the original suffragette movement than anything else a feminist has done in the past 10 years. And that proves why 1920 is a mistake. True enough, Donkey Punch, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Miss Sin said they're really good. If I remember correctly, she liked the 4503. Wait, did you like the one with the old man or the bus one? Which one did you like more?
Documents. And so... You know, we have a long way. Look, the bottom line
is,
you, unless there is a compelling reason that relates to imminent physical security of citizens, we should never hide the truth from the population in a democracy, period. Because that is incompatible with democracy. Secrecy is incompatible with democracy. How can I'm running the government, but you can't tell me what the government's doing? That's not democracy. It's something else. And don't insult me by calling it a democracy, because it's very much not.
I don't know what it's called, but it most certainly is not democracy because we're not making decisions on it.
And so, yes, there's much that remains secret. I'm not going to speculate. You don't need to be conspiracy nut. In the United States, we have over 1 billion federal documents that remain classified. 1 billion, going back to the Second World War. So that's a democracy? That is not a democracy. It's just not. Tell me how it is.
Yes, in a sense, the very category of classified, except in matters of national security, obviously indicates a kind of parental relationship. You used the metaphor.
Thank you. That's exactly. I'm stealing that. That's exactly. It indicates a parental relationship. That's right.
And I didn't.
We're locking the bedroom door. You can't know what's happening in here.
Yeah, I want to know what's going on in there. Although when I did look once, it was disgusting. Listen, we're going to do a little bit on Locals. So if you're watching this on Locals right now, you're welcome. We'll see you in a second. Press the red button on the bottom of your screen and join us in Locals. We're going to play true or false, not true and false.
No, I don't have that bit. I don't have that bit. We could take a look at the beginning of the Andrew Tate interview if you guys are interested. In a second, I'll pull it up here. Just watch a little bit of this, see what this is all about.
Being a 6th grade boy in the United States right now, what do you...
Let's see what this is all about. She said, I like them both, but particularly the old man, I think. That would be the $44. Guys, there it is. Miss Sin wants to see the 44.
Hearing at school, what are they telling you on the internet? Well, they're telling you to stop being yourself. Sit still. Stop joking. Suppress your...
But she most importantly wants to see you smash the like and share it out. While also the 44. Is the audio okay on this one out there? It looks good on my end.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. Imagine being a 6th grade boy in the United States right now. What are you hearing at school? What are they telling you on the internet? Well, they're telling you to stop being yourself. Sit still. Stop joking. Suppress your aggression.
Sit down. Shut up.
Share your feelings. Obey. Female qualities are virtuous. Masculine qualities are oppressive. That's the message. In case it wasn't clear enough, schools around the country have removed urinals from boys' bathrooms.
What? Have they really?
The male body itself is shameful. Sit down when you pee like a good little girl. Views
You can stand up and piss in a toilet.
like this are often called feminism.
But they're moving it for the trans girls that have to take a piss.
Or woke politics. But in fact, they amount to mass conversion therapy, an attempt to change the fundamental nature of people. Nothing like this has ever been attempted at scale. It's one of the most grotesque and destructive experiments in human history. What would it be like to find yourself the subject of that experiment as a boy trying to become a man during the Biden years? Well, you might kill yourself. Many have.
Yeah, if they're, boys really have an advantage. You can just piss in the sink.
You might decide to reject your own manhood and embrace androgyny, or even switch sexes. Girls are better? Fine, I'll become one. Or more likely, you might simply withdraw into porn and weed and video games and give up on your life before.
Yeah, so I'm not a weed smoker and I don't have much time for video games, but I don't think those things are bad. They're a good way to unwind when done in moderation. I really dislike the idea that porn and weed and video games are ruining America. Stop it.
Before it's begun. You might retire at 19, a less dramatic form of suicide. All around us, this is happening. Noticing it is forbidden, but that does not make it any less real. So it's probably not surprising that Andrew Tate was the most Googled man in the world last year. He offers a different vision. Tate is a former professional kickboxer who about a decade ago began posting advice to young men on social media. Tate's view is that men want respect above all. It's how they're wired. In order to
Poltergeisha, you could take my porn and video game from my cold dead hands.
Get respect, men must become worthy of it. They must become more impressive. Wake up early, work as hard as you can, stay sober, find God, keep yourself physically fit, don't complain. That's his worldview. Earlier generations of Western leaders might have found parts of Tate's message inspiring. Now it's seen as a threat. The media treated him like a criminal up until the day he was officially classified as one. Just after Christmas last year, Tate and his brother Tristan were arrested and thrown into prison in Romania, where they live. The Tates were held without charges for 3 months, very likely with the encouragement of the British and American governments. In June, they were...
Oh, for fucking sure. Do you think the Biden administration and whatever the hell they're doing in Britain, you think they didn't have a say in this? You think they didn't have an opinion on this?
Charged with human trafficking. They're now under house arrest until their trial. Are the Tates guilty of human trafficking? We're not their lawyers, but it's worth noting that as of today, not a single woman has come forward to say that she was kidnapped or imprisoned or moved across international borders against her will by Andrew or Tristan Tate. It's also true that in some ways, the charges against the Tates seem inevitable, like they were always going to happen. Accusing a man of a sex crime is the fastest possible way to discredit what he's saying. Days after WikiLeaks revealed that the U.S. government had been spying on its allies and lying about it, Julian Assange was arrested in London for rape. 9 years later, prosecutors dropped the case against Assange for lack of evidence, though somehow that fact was not as widely covered. Is that what's happening here? Again, we don't know. Jeffrey Epstein's dinner partners insist that Andrew Tate is a pervert and a criminal. Maybe they're telling the truth. Either way, we think Tate's views about men very much deserve a hearing. So we flew to Romania to talk to him. We're posting the entire interview here on Twitter because we've been assured it will not be taken down for ideological reasons, as so much of this content has.
Do you think it'll stay up? Do you think it'll stay up? Oh.
Has been. The video is long, but if you can, take the time to watch it. Make up your own mind about Andrew Tate. Here it is. So what are you charged with?
That's a really good question. I'm charged with being the head of an organized criminal group, which is in charge of recruiting girls to make TikTok videos to steal the money from the TikTok views.
What?
Recruiting girls to make TikTok videos and stealing the money. So it's really a financial crime?
It looks that way, and it's very interesting because...
What? I need to hear that again.
The girls who they've identified to add to the file are saying...
Yes, later prosecuted.
Recruiting girls to make TikTok videos to steal the money from the TikTok views.
Recruiting girls to make TikTok videos and then stealing the money. Okay. A slight branch off from this is but there was recently a local school that, I shit you not, got into it with parents because they didn't want to put a litter box in for the kids that identified as a cat. Okay, that's fine. I don't even know. Okay.
Recruiting girls to make TikTok videos and stealing the money. So it's really a financial crime?
It looks that way, and it's very interesting because the girls who they've identified to add to the file are saying that we're not victims of anything and this isn't true. But the state believes it's true, and the state thinks that I, as a 35-year-old man, woke up. I was already...
He's 30. I swear to God, I thought he was in his 40s.
Already extremely financially successful. I was already a father. I was already very well known. I had no financial motivation. I have no criminal record. It's not my personality profile, but I woke up at the age of 35 and decided to make girls do TikTok to enrich myself with the pennies that I would earn from...
Let your dog ride shotgun. Make your wife sit in back. Be a man.
That is literally the worst defense for this you could ever have. Me as a extremely financially successful 35-year-old man, I woke up and decided to make girls do TikToks because it's money. Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's believable. I'm rich and they think I wanted more money? Yes, that's exactly what they're saying. I ain't gonna give men advice on being men and sound like a pumpkin spice basic bitch just asking. That's a great question. Thank you, Valine.
TikTok views.
So in the United States, I think the belief is that you were charged with human trafficking.
Yeah, that's human trafficking because what you do is you force a girl to work against her will for financial gain. That's human trafficking. And their justification for this is that
I guess technically
girls do TikTok. Some girls I know who they found who say they're not victims have TikTok accounts.
How do you force someone to do TikTok videos?
I guess the prosecutor is going to have to explain that, isn't he? It's a very interesting scenario I'm in, and I'm inside of Romania, so I have to show a degree of respect to the Romanian judicial system, and I have to show a degree of respect to the situation I'm in, but the overall charge is that there's an organized criminal group. There's a group of us. I'm the head of it.
An organized criminal group?
My brother is below me, and we use the lover boy method to convince women to do TikTok videos to make money so that we can steal the TikTok money.
So there's no, just to be clear, you are not accused of pandering, of pimping, of forcing women to have sex with anybody.
No, not forcing them to have sex, not restraining their movement, not stopping them from living a full life, but the fact that we are somehow convincing them to have TikTok. Very interesting. I don't think...
But there's no actual... I'm asking you this because I do think it's a widespread belief that you were accused of pimping.
Yeah, no, that's nothing to do with any of this case. Absolutely nothing.
Oh shit, guys, we are over 30%, but we got like 5 minutes left. Can we at least get to, I don't know, half?
And it's kind of scary because...
We'll count half as a yeet.
The crime in itself of human trafficking is a unique one because they can ignore the statement of the victim. So the girls have come forward and said, this is insane. You've just picked us because...
Yeah, I smell it too, Valine.
We're near Andrew and we're his friends. But the whole idea of the crime is they can say that she's She's brainwashed, right? She's under duress. So you can ignore her statement. State says she's a victim regardless of the fact that she says she's not a victim. So it's very interesting because the difference between sex and rape is consent, right?
Right.
But they remove all of that. They're like, nope, you're a victim. No matter what you say, we're deciding you're a victim. And they've chosen them. And of course, these girls do nothing pornographic. They've never had sex with anyone, nothing to do with that. So they've picked TikTok. So it's scary. Imagine you're a full-grown man anywhere in the world today. They can find 2 girls who have TikTok on their phone, which is every single female on the planet, and they can accuse you of forcing them to take the TikTok money. And even if the girls say they didn't do that, this isn't true, then you're still a human.
I don't know, man. I don't think he is guilty of what he's accused of yet, but there's something about this cat that really just tickles my lizard brain. It's something about this something about him just really bugs me.
But force, what does that consist of? Forcing someone to do something, are they accusing you of using violence or?
No, they're accusing me, and this thing, they're accusing me of using the lover boy method, coercing them by being nice.
And by the way, these charges presumably are public, so.
They're public, and this is extremely serious, but if you actually analyze the overall case against me, they're saying that Andrew and his brother, by being nice men, convinced girls to have TikTok accounts and then take the money. And it's very interesting because inside of the entire case file, there's not a single financial transaction to us for money.
What are the penalties?
They're extremely severe, 5 to 10 years in jail. And I've already served, coming up now, 7 months in a form of jail. They can only hold
you are essentially incarcerated right now.
Absolutely, I'm on house arrest. And that counts as jail. You can only be held 6 months without charge. I was initially picked up, thrown in a cell without charge, and I think the intention of the entire investigation at that point was to find the crime because they had very, very weak evidence. They contacted 2,000 people who know me or knew me. They tried very hard to convince some female somewhere to come forward and say something bad about me. The media machine, which works hands in hands with the justice machine, as you know very well, did exactly that. In fact, they all...
Yeah, this guy, something about him just tickles my lizard brain. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Offered bribes effectively. They'd call up ex-girlfriends and say, if you have anything bad to say about Andrew, we can pay you $50,000 for the story. And they tried very hard. They didn't find any evidence of anything. They then released me on house arrest, and then 2 days before the legal limit in which they had to drop everything, they charged me with whatever they had from the beginning, which is very little. And now we have to wait for the Romanian judicial system to analyze the file and, God willing, throw it away.
How long did you spend in jail?
I was in jail for 92 days in a Romanian jail cell.
What was that like?
It was certainly an interesting experience. I won't lie and say it was easy. It was certainly very difficult. The uncertainty of it. It's a very uncertain situation to be picked up on just before New Year's Eve and thrown in a cell without charge. And I'm asking different prison guards and different prisoners, how long am I going to be here? One person was like, I've been here 2 years. I was like, have you been charged? He goes, yeah, but I haven't gone to court yet. Like, everyone's been there for years. I thought.
My mom always said, if your gut's warning you about somebody, you should probably pay attention. We're about 10 minutes into this. I think this is a fine stopping point. And you know what? I have to agree. We, as humans, need to not ignore our gut when it says something. If you get a gut feeling about some shit, it's probably best to listen, because you're getting that gut feeling for a fucking reason. It's just, you should pay attention to that shit. But I think that will conclude us for tonight. Guys, thank you for coming and hanging out. Thank you for an incredible show tonight, everybody. Make sure you're around for the AAA meeting on Polydub channel tomorrow, hopefully, maybe. Yeah, so keep an eye out for it. Guys, have a good one. I will see you all in the next one. I should have a new video up tomorrow. I'll put a highlight up tonight. Later.